Marcus Thompson stands outside the Riverside Medical Center, watching paramedics wheel an unconscious elderly white woman through automatic doors. His phone buzzes with the 15th missed call from Prescott Industries. The interview started 2 hours ago. His only suit jacket is soaked with her blood from where she hit her head. A security guard eyes him suspiciously, hand near his radio. Marcus knows what this looks like. He knows what he's lost. What he doesn't know is that the woman he saved is Eleanor Prescott, and her son, the man who was supposed to interview him, is about to make him pay for his kindness in ways he never imagined. Marcus Thompson's alarm pierced the darkness at 5 in the morning, but he was already awake. He had been for the past hour, running through interview questions in his mind, rehearsing answers until they felt natural instead of memorized. Today was the day that would change everything. Today was his interview at Prescott Industries. He lived in a cramped studio apartment in South Memphis, the kind of place where the radiator clanked all winter and the air conditioning barely worked in summer. The walls were thin enough that he could hear his neighbor's television through the plaster. But it was home, and more importantly, it was affordable. Mostly, the rent was overdue by 3 weeks, but his landlord had given him an extension after Marcus promised the job offer was coming. His mother's medical bills sat in a stack on his tiny kitchen table, each envelope a reminder of why this interview mattered so much. Stage 3, breast cancer didn't care about payment plans or good intentions. Marcus showered in water that never quite got hot enough, then stood in front of his closet, such as it was. One suit, charcoal gray, purchased from a thrift store and tailored by his neighbor Mrs. Chen for $20, and a promise to help her son with his college applications. The shirt was crisp white, ironed last night with obsessive care. The tie was burgundy, borrowed from his uncle. His shoes were old, but polished to a mirror shine. He dressed slowly, carefully, treating each garment like armor. Because that's what it was, armor against a world that looked at young black men like him and made assumptions. Armor against the statistics that said he shouldn't have made it this far. He had graduated 4 months ago from Tennessee State University with a degree in finance, top 15% of his class despite working 2 jobs throughout college. His resume was immaculate. His references glowed. His portfolio of financial analysis projects would impress anyone who actually looked at it. But getting someone to look, that was the challenge. He had sent out 237 applications over 4 months. Prescott Industries was the first to call him back for an interview. And not just any position. Junior financial analyst. Entry level, yes, but at one of Memphis' most prestigious firms. The kind of place where careers were made, where someone like him could prove himself and climb, where the salary would cover his mother's treatments and still leave enough to breathe. Marcus reviewed his notes one more time over instant coffee and toast. Market analysis. Portfolio theory. Risk assessment models. He knew this material backward and forward. Mrs. Chen knocked on his door at 7:30. She was a tiny Vietnamese woman in her 60s who had lived in the building for 20 years. She pressed a small jade pendant into his palm. "For luck," she said. Her eyes were warm. Marcus thanked her, tucked it into his pocket, and headed out. The bus schedule was burned into his brain. Number 47 at 7:52. Transfer to number 12 at 8:21, arrived downtown by 8:45. His interview was at 9 o'clock sharp. He had built in a 15-minute cushion to account for delays. Find the building. Calm his nerves. Everything was planned. Everything was perfect. The morning air was crisp for late September. The sky that particular shade of blue that promised a beautiful day. Marcus sat near the front of the first bus, his portfolio bag across his lap, reviewing notes on his phone. An older black woman smiled at him. "You look sharp, young man," she said. "Going places?" He thanked her, hoped she was right. The transfer went smoothly. By 8:35, Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside Prescott Tower, a gleaming 15-story building of steel and glass in downtown Memphis. The lobby was visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, all marble and modern art. This was it. This was his future. He took a deep breath, straightened his tie, said a quick prayer his grandmother had taught him. Then he saw her. Across the street, at the bus stop he had just left, An elderly white woman in an elegant navy coat was standing alone. She swayed slightly, reached for the bench, missed. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the concrete. Her head made a sound Marcus would hear in his nightmares. People were everywhere. Morning commuters rushing past with coffee cups and briefcases. A young white couple in running gear jogging by. A man in a delivery uniform loading a truck. Nobody stopped. Nobody moved toward her. They looked. He pulled out his phone, dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "There's been an accident," he said. Woman collapsed at the corner of Madison and Front. She's bleeding from her head. She needs an ambulance now. He yanked off his suit jacket, pressed it against her wound. She gasped. I know," he said. "I'm sorry. I have to stop the bleeding." He looked up at the gathered crowd. "Someone get me something to elevate her legs. Anyone have a first aid kit?" Blank stares. Phone cameras. A white man in an expensive suit leaned down, his voice low. "You should leave before the cops show up," he said. Marcus understood the implication. Understood what it looked like. Young black man, older white woman, blood. He stayed. The ambulance arrived 8 minutes later. By then, Marcus had kept pressure on the wound, talked to her gently, kept her conscious. The paramedics rushed over, a white man and woman in their 30s. The man immediately turned to Marcus. "What did you do to her?" he demanded. His tone was accusatory, sharp. "Nothing," Marcus said. "I found her like this. She fell." The paramedic didn't look convinced. He was checking her wound, but his eyes kept returning to Marcus with suspicion. "Sir, you need to step back." "I am back," Marcus said. "I called 911. I've been keeping pressure on the wound." "You need to step back now," the paramedic repeated, louder. The woman, despite her obvious pain and confusion, seemed to register what was happening. She reached out weakly, grabbed Marcus' hand. "He helped," she whispered. "He helped me." The female paramedic nodded, her expression softening. "Okay, we've got her now. Thank you for calling." They loaded her onto a stretcher. Marcus stood, his jacket ruined, his hands covered in blood, his white shirt stained. He looked at his phone. 9:07. He had missed the start of his interview. His phone was at 5% battery. He tried calling Prescott Industries but got a directory he couldn't navigate. He asked the paramedics which hospital. "Riverside Medical Center," the woman said. "You should probably come with us. Police are going to want a statement." Marcus climbed into the ambulance, watching his future disappear in the reflection of the rear windows as they pulled away. At the hospital, 2 Memphis police officers were waiting. A white officer in his 40s and a black female officer in her 30s. They separated Marcus from the paramedics immediately. The white officer's hand rested near his gun. "Tell us what happened," he said. Marcus explained. "Found her collapsed. Called 911. Rendered aid." The officer's eyes narrowed. "You just happened to be there." Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest. "I was on my way to a job interview. I saw her fall. Nobody else was helping." "Where's this interview?" the black officer asked. Her tone was less hostile, more professional. "Prescott Industries." Marcus checked his dying phone. "I was supposed to be there 30 minutes ago." The white officer walked away, spoke into his radio. The black officer looked at Marcus with something like sympathy. "We need to verify your story. Check surveillance cameras. Talk to witnesses. Shouldn't take too long." It took 3 hours. 3 hours of sitting in a hospital waiting room, watching his phone die, unable to call anyone. 3 hours of officers coming back with more questions. 3 hours of his future crumbling. Finally, the black officer returned. "You're clear. Multiple witnesses confirmed your account. Camera footage backs it up. You did a good thing." Marcus wanted to scream. Instead, he asked to use a phone. He called Prescott Industries from the hospital's courtesy phone. "Prescott Industries. How may I direct your call?" The receptionist's voice was crisp, professional. "Hi, this is Marcus Thompson. I had an interview this morning at 9. I'm so sorry. There was an emergency. I had to help someone who collapsed." There was a pause. The receptionist's voice cooled noticeably. "Mr. Thompson, your interview was scheduled for 9 o'clock. It is now 12:15. The position has been filled. I understand, but if I could just explain. Mr. Prescott doesn't tolerate unprofessionalism, she said. Thank you for your interest in Prescott Industries. She hung up. Marcus stood in the hospital corridor, still wearing his blood-stained clothes, holding a phone receiver that buzzed with a dial tone. Everything he had worked for. Gone. Because he chose to help. The choice that would haunt him. The choice that would change everything. Just not in any way he could have imagined. Marcus took the bus back to his apartment in a daze, acutely aware of how people stared at his ruined clothes. An elderly black man offered him a seat, asked if he was okay. Marcus nodded, unable to form words. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him like a physical force. When he finally stumbled through his door, he stripped off the blood-stained shirt and pants, stood under the shower until the water ran clear, then collapsed onto his bed. His phone, plugged in and charging, buzzed with notifications. Voicemails from his mother asking how the interview went. Texts from friends sending encouragement. An email from his landlord reminding him that rent was now 4 weeks overdue. Marcus didn't respond to any of them. He couldn't face telling his mother that he had thrown away their best chance. That evening, he forced himself to sit at his laptop and start over. He updated his resume. He logged into job search sites. He applied to everything. Anything. Retail positions. Administrative assistant roles. Warehouse work. Entry-level positions that didn't require a college degree. The kind of jobs that would barely cover rent, let alone medical bills. The desperation felt like drowning in slow motion. 2 days passed in a blur of applications and rejections. His mother called, and he lied. Said the interview went well. They were still making decisions. He couldn't bear to hear the hope die in her voice. On the 3rd day, his phone rang from an unknown number. Marcus Thompson, a man's voice asked. Yes, this is Derek Martinez from Channel 7 News. I'm doing a story about the woman you helped on Madison Avenue. Would you be willing to talk? Marcus almost said no. Almost. But something in him, some desperate need to make sense of what had happened, made him agree. They met at a coffee shop. Derek was a young Latino reporter, eager and earnest. He had obtained the bystander videos from social media, footage Marcus hadn't seen. Watching himself on Derek's tablet, Marcus saw what everyone else had seen. A young black man in a suit running toward an elderly white woman. The angle made it look aggressive, until you saw him drop to his knees to help her. You sacrificed your job interview to save her life, Derek said. Why? Because nobody else was, Marcus said simply. What else was I supposed to do? The story aired that night. Local hero sacrifices dream job to save stranger. They used his name, showed his face, told his story. Marcus' phone exploded. His mother called crying, proud and heartbroken that he hadn't told her. Friends shared the segment. People from high school he hadn't spoken to in years sent messages calling him a hero. The next morning, the story went viral. It was picked up by national news outlets, shared millions of times on social media. Marcus woke to find his Instagram followers had jumped from 300 to 30,000 overnight. But with the attention came something darker. Marcus made the mistake of reading the comments. Thousands praised him, called him a hero, demanded he be rewarded. But thousands more wrote things that made his stomach turn. They claimed he was exploiting the situation, questioned his motives, suggested he had hurt the woman himself and staged the rescue, called him a thug in a suit, posted racist slurs and violent threats. Anonymous accounts dug into his background, shared his address, his mother's name, photos from his social media. One comment with 12,000 likes read, "Another black man playing victim and expecting handouts. He probably pushed her himself." Marcus tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the positive responses, but the hatred was overwhelming. His inbox filled with messages, some supportive, many vicious. Then came the professional fallout. He had applied to 43 companies in 3 days. 12 had sent automated rejections immediately. The others had gone silent, until one HR manager made a mistake. Marcus received an email clearly meant for a colleague. Subject line, "That viral kid." The message, "Hey Sarah. Saw the resume for Marcus Thompson. That's the kid from the video, right? I'm going to pass. Too much controversy. Last thing we need is that kind of attention. Company policy, you know how it is. Let me know if you disagree." Marcus stared at the email for 10 minutes before he understood. His act of kindness had made him unhireable. He had become too recognizable, too controversial, too risky. Companies didn't want the drama, didn't want to deal with the racist backlash or accusations of virtue signaling. His face was everywhere, and it had poisoned his prospects. He called the HR manager, tried to plead his case. She was apologetic but firm. "We've decided to go in a different direction. It's nothing personal." But it was personal. It was entirely personal. His race, his choice, his visibility. All of it had become a scarlet letter. Over the next week, the same pattern repeated. Companies that had shown interest went silent. Applications disappeared into black holes. One recruiter was honest enough to tell him off the record, "You're qualified, but nobody wants to touch this situation. Give it 6 months for things to die down." Marcus didn't have 6 months. He had 18 days before eviction. His mother's next round of chemotherapy was in 3 weeks. The medical bills were going to collections. He spent his days applying to jobs and his nights working delivery shifts for a food app, earning barely enough to buy groceries. The viral fame felt like a curse. People recognized him on the street, wanted to take photos, told him he was an inspiration. He smiled and thanked them while dying inside. 5 days after the incident, Marcus was halfway through a peanut butter sandwich when someone knocked on his door. He wasn't expecting anyone. He looked through the peephole and saw a tall, white man in an expensive charcoal suit, standing in his shabby hallway, looking deeply out of place. Marcus opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "Marcus Thompson. I'm Jonathan Prescott." Marcus felt his heart stop. He recognized the face from the Prescott Industries website. This was the CEO, the man who was supposed to interview him, the man whose company had dismissed him. "What are you doing here?" Marcus managed. "I wanted to thank you in person," Jonathan said. His voice was smooth, controlled, the voice of someone used to being listened to. "You saved my mother's life. Your mother. The woman you helped. Eleanor Prescott. She's my mother." Marcus' mind reeled. The elderly woman he had helped was Eleanor Prescott. The Prescott family. One of the wealthiest families in Memphis. Old money, real estate, investments. And her son was standing in his doorway. "May I come in?" Jonathan asked. Marcus stepped aside, suddenly aware of how small and shabby his apartment looked. The peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the stack of medical bills on the table. Jonathan's eyes swept the space, taking it all in. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a check, handed it to Marcus. $5,000. "Consider it a thank you," Jonathan said. "My mother is recovering well, thanks to your quick action." The doctor said a few more minutes, and the outcome could have been very different. Marcus stared at the check. $5,000. It would cover his rent, some of his mother's bills, buy him time. But something about the gesture felt wrong. "I don't need payment for helping someone," Marcus said, even as his fingers tightened on the check. Jonathan smiled. "It's not payment. It's gratitude." He paused, looked around the apartment again. "I also looked into you after the incident. You have an impressive resume. Tennessee State, top of your class, excellent references. The interview you missed that day? It was with me." Marcus' chest tightened. "I tried to explain." "I know," Jonathan said. "I read the receptionist's notes. I understand there were extenuating circumstances." He paused, and Marcus felt hope flicker. "I'd like to offer you a position at Prescott Industries." The hope exploded into something like joy. Marcus felt his face split into a smile. "Really?" "However," Jonathan continued, and Marcus' smile died. "Given the media attention and the controversy around this situation, it wouldn't be in our company's best interest to bring you on board right now. People might think we're virtue signaling, making a hire for optics rather than qualifications. I'm sure you understand." Marcus didn't understand. "You're saying no." "I'm saying not now," Jonathan clarified. "Maybe in 6 months, a year, when things have died down. But I did want to show my gratitude." He gestured to the check. "And I have a connection at a warehouse distribution center. Good. Honest work. I can put in a word for you." Marcus looked at the check in his hand. $5,000. Not gratitude, hush money. A payment to go away quietly. To stop being visible. To disappear back into the shadows where people like Jonathan Prescott preferred people like Marcus to stay. The position you were hiring for, Marcus said slowly. It's still open, Jonathan hesitated. We've extended an offer to another candidate. White? Marcus asked. It wasn't really a question. Jonathan's expression hardened. That's not appropriate. You're right, Marcus said. Nothing about this is appropriate. He wanted to tear up the check, wanted to throw it in Jonathan Prescott's face. But his landlord's eviction notice was on the table. His mother's medication cost $300 a week. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. He folded the check carefully. Thank you, Marcus said, the words tasting like ash. Jonathan nodded, satisfied. He left his card on the table, the warehouse job. If you're interested. Then he was gone, leaving Marcus alone with a check that felt like 30 pieces of silver. Marcus cashed the check the next day, hating himself with each step. He paid his landlord 3 months of back and forward rent. He sent $2,000 to his mother's oncology center. He bought groceries, real groceries, for the first time in months. The remaining money went into his account, a small buffer against disaster. Then he called the number on Jonathan Prescott's card about the warehouse job. The facility was in Whitehaven, a 40-minute bus ride from his apartment. The manager, a gruff white man named Dale, looked him over with barely concealed disdain. Prescott said, "You needed work." "Yeah," Marcus said. "When can you start?" "Tonight. Overnight shift. 10 at night to 6 in the morning. $11 an hour. Loading trucks." It was brutal work. Marcus spent 8 hours lifting boxes that weighed up to 70 pounds. Loading them onto trucks, according to zone maps, moving at a pace that left no room for breaks beyond the legally mandated 15 minutes every 4 hours. His co-workers were mostly Black and Latino men, many of them older, many of them clearly overqualified for this kind of labor. During his first break, Marcus sat with a group of them in the break room. A black man in his 40s named Jerome noticed Marcus' college ring. "Tennessee State," Jerome said. "What's your degree?" "Finance." Jerome laughed bitterly. "I got a degree in civil engineering from Georgia Tech. Been loading boxes for 3 years. Marcus met his eyes. "What happened?" "What always happens," Jerome said. He gestured around the room. "Ask any of them. Carlos over there has a master's in education. Dwayne was a certified paralegal. We all had careers once. Then we got too visible, too risky, too black. Companies want diversity in their brochures, not their boardrooms." The night shifts blurred together. Marcus' body ached constantly. His hands developed calluses. He came home each morning as the sun rose, slept fitfully through the day, woke to apply to jobs that never responded, then went back to the warehouse. His mother called weakly, her voice weak from treatment. She thought he was working in finance. He couldn't tell her the truth. 3 weeks into the warehouse job, Marcus saw a news segment while scrolling his phone during a break. It was about a charity gala downtown. Memphis elite gathered to raise money for local schools. And there, shaking hands and smiling for cameras, was Jonathan Prescott. The reporter's voice filled Marcus' earbuds. "Jonathan Prescott, CEO of Prescott Industries, is being honored tonight for corporate leadership in community service. His recent act of supporting the young man who saved his mother's life has been praised as an example of compassion in business." The camera cut to Jonathan being interviewed. "We're grateful to Marcus Thompson for his heroic actions," Jonathan said smoothly. "At Prescott Industries, we believe in supporting our community. We were able to help Marcus find employment and provide some financial assistance during a difficult time. It's the least we could do." Marcus watched himself become a footnote in Jonathan Prescott's redemption story. The video showed photos of Marcus from the viral incident, but omitted that Jonathan had refused to actually hire him. Omitted the warehouse job at $11 an hour. Omitted everything except the narrative that made Jonathan look generous. The comments under the video praised Jonathan's kindness, called him a role model, suggested he run for public office. Marcus felt something inside him crack. The anger he had been suppressing for weeks, the rage at the injustice of it all, erupted. He wasn't going to be silent anymore. He wasn't going to be a prop in Jonathan Prescott's public relations campaign. He contacted Derek Martinez, the reporter who had first covered his story. Derek met him at the same coffee shop. Marcus told him everything. The interview had missed. The $5,000 check, Jonathan's refusal to hire him but willingness to use his story, the warehouse job. Derek listened, taking notes, his expression growing darker. "This is important," Derek said. "People need to know." The story ran 2 days later. The hero Jonathan Prescott forgot. How a Memphis CEO exploited a Good Samaritan. It was detailed, factual, damning. Derek had verified everything, obtained copies of Marcus' initial interview confirmation, talked to other Prescott Industries applicants who'd been rejected despite qualifications. The story included Jonathan's charity gala speech, alongside the reality of Marcus loading boxes for poverty wages. Social media erupted again, but this time the target was Jonathan Prescott. People called him a hypocrite, demanded accountability, started boycotts of Prescott Industries. The hashtag Prescott hypocrisy trended nationally. Prescott Industries stock dropped 2% in a day. For 48 hours, Marcus felt vindicated. Justice, he thought, was finally being served. Then Jonathan Prescott's lawyers called. Marcus was loading a truck when his phone rang. He almost didn't answer the unknown number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Catherine Winters from Winters & Associates. We represent Prescott Industries and Jonathan Prescott personally." Marcus' stomach dropped. "Okay. We're calling to inform you that you are in violation of the non-disclosure agreement you signed when accepting financial compensation from Mr. Prescott." Non-disclosure agreement. Marcus' mind raced back to the day Jonathan had given him the check. There had been a paper attached, something about the payment being confidential. Marcus had barely glanced at it, focused only on the money that would keep him housed and fed. "By publicly discussing the details of your agreement with Mr. Prescott and making defamatory statements about him and his company, you have breached this contract. We are demanding immediate retraction of your statements and return of the $5,000 payment plus interest and legal fees. Additionally, we are prepared to file a defamation lawsuit if you do not comply within 72 hours. Marcus felt the world tilt. "I don't have $5,000. "That's not our concern," Catherine said crisply. "You have 72 hours. He stumbled through the rest of his shift in a daze. At 6 a.m, he went straight to a legal aid office that opened at 7. The attorney, a tired-looking black woman named Michelle Foster, reviewed the document Marcus had hastily signed. "This NDA is probably unenforceable," she said. "It's overly broad and you signed under duress." "Probably." Marcus heard the uncertainty. "But fighting it will cost money you don't have," Michelle continued. "Prescott has expensive lawyers who can drag this out for years. Even if you win, you'll be bankrupted by legal fees. What do I do?" Michelle looked at him with sympathy. "Practically? You could try to settle, maybe offer to return what's left of the money and agree to stop talking publicly. Or you fight and risk everything." Marcus left her office as the sun climbed higher, exhaustion and fear warring inside him. That afternoon, he was fired from the warehouse. Dale called him into the office. "We're letting you go. You violated company policy." "What policy?" "Bringing negative attention to our business partners," Dale said. "Prescott Industries is one of our biggest clients. They made it clear they don't want you working anywhere connected to them." "This is illegal," Marcus said. "This is retaliation." "Prove it," Dale said. He handed Marcus his final paycheck. Marcus walked out of the warehouse at 2 p.m, unemployed, facing a lawsuit. With less than $600 in his bank account and no prospects, he had fought back, and Jonathan Prescott had crushed him for it. Marcus spent 3 days in his apartment, paralyzed by despair. His phone rang constantly, reporters wanting follow-ups, lawyers demanding responses, his mother asking why he wasn't answering her calls. He ignored everything. On the 4th day, someone knocked on his door with a persistence that wouldn't stop. Marcus finally opened it, ready to yell at whoever it was. An elderly white woman stood there, impeccably dressed in a cream-colored suit, leaning slightly on a silver-handled cane. Her silver hair was perfectly styled. Her blue eyes were sharp and assessing. It took Marcus a moment to recognize her without the blood and panic. "Eleanor Prescott." "Mrs. Prescott," Marcus said, shocked. "May I come in?" she asked. Her voice was gentle but firm, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Marcus stepped aside. She entered his small apartment, taking in the surroundings with the same assessing look her son had worn, but without the judgment. She sat in his second-hand armchair without being asked, setting her cane beside her. "You've been difficult to reach," Eleanor said. "I've been trying to contact you for a week." Marcus remained standing. "Why?" "Because I owe you an apology." Marcus blinked. "You owe me. I just learned what my son has done to you," Eleanor said. Her voice carried genuine distress. "The check with strings attached. The refusal to hire you. Using your story for his own benefit. The threats and the lawsuit. All of it. I'm horrified." "You didn't know. I've been recovering," Eleanor said. "Traumatic brain injury, they called it. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital, barely able to think straight. Then another 2 weeks in rehab, learning to walk without dizziness. My son handled everything. Told me bits and pieces. He said he'd taken care of you, helped you find work, showed his gratitude. I believed him." She paused, her hands tightening on the head of her cane. "Then I saw the news story. The real story. And I started asking questions." Jonathan didn't want to answer. Marcus sat down slowly on his couch. "What do you want from me?" "I want to make this right," Eleanor said. "But I need your help to do it." Marcus laughed bitterly. "I don't think I am in a position to help anyone." "You don't understand," Eleanor said. She leaned forward. "I'm not just Jonathan's mother. I own Prescott Industries. My late husband, Thomas, built that company from nothing. When he died 5 years ago, he left it in a trust with very specific terms. I control 51% of the shares. Jonathan runs the company as CEO, but ultimate authority rests with me." Marcus felt something shift. "I didn't know that." "Most people don't," Eleanor said. "Thomas wanted it that way to protect me from pressure. After he died, I stepped back. I was grieving. I trusted Jonathan to run things honorably, the way his father would have wanted." She paused, pain crossing her face. "I was wrong to be so absent. Wrong to assume. Your situation made me start looking closer at the company. I don't like what I'm finding." "What do you mean?" Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out a folder, handed it to Marcus. He opened it to find printed emails, spreadsheets, documents. "I started with hiring records," Eleanor said. "In the last 3 years under Jonathan's leadership, Prescott Industries has hired 87 new employees. 71 are white. Of the 16 minorities hired, 12 are in administrative or support roles. Only 4 have been hired into analyst or management track positions." Marcus scanned the documents. "This is discrimination." "Keep reading," Eleanor said. Marcus flipped through pages. Performance reviews that rated Black and Latino employees consistently lower than white colleagues for identical work. Pay disparities. Promotion patterns that consistently elevated white employees over equally or better qualified minorities. An email from Jonathan to HR that read, "Let's be strategic about our diversity initiatives. We need numbers for the board, but let's keep them in positions where they're not client-facing." Marcus felt sick. "He has this in writing." "Hes arrogant," Eleanor said. "He doesn't think he'll be caught, and until now, he hasn't been." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I need help," Eleanor said simply. "I'm a 73-year-old woman who just had a brain injury. I've been out of the business for years. Jonathan controls the day-to-day operations. I have the legal authority to change things, but I don't have the knowledge or the evidence to do it effectively. You do." "I load boxes in a warehouse," Marcus said. "I don't have any power." "You have something more valuable than power," Eleanor said. "You have a reason to care, and you have the intelligence to understand what you're looking at." She gestured to the documents. "I need someone who can help me investigate this properly. Gather evidence. Build a case. Someone Jonathan won't see coming." Marcus looked at the papers in his hands, at this elderly white woman who was offering him something impossible. "Why would you do this?" he asked. "Why would you go against your own son?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Eleanor said. She met his eyes. "And because you didn't have to help me that day. You sacrificed everything for a stranger. The least I can do is try to help you get some of it back. And maybe," she added, her voice soft, Maybe I can help a lot of other people in the process. People my son has hurt. People my husband would never have wanted hurt in his name. Marcus thought about Jerome and Carlos and Dwayne, and all the other overqualified men loading boxes in that warehouse. Thought about every black professional who'd been passed over, pushed out, paid less, rated lower. Thought about the system that kept grinding people down. "What would you need me to do?" Marcus asked. Eleanor smiled. It was a fierce smile. The smile of a woman who had once built an empire alongside her husband and hadn't forgotten how. "I need you to help me tear down what my son has built and rebuild it the way it should have been all along." Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. "When do we start?" "Now," Eleanor said. "But you need to know something first. Jonathan can't know what we're doing. He still thinks I'm a confused old woman recovering from an injury. We need to keep it that way until we're ready. This will be dangerous. He has resources, and he won't hesitate to use them." Marcus thought about the threats, the lawsuit, the firing. I'm already at war with him. "Then let's make sure you win," Eleanor said. She extended her hand. Marcus shook it, and an alliance was born. For the next 3 weeks, Marcus and Eleanor worked in secret. They met at her home, an elegant mansion in Central Gardens that made Marcus feel like he'd stepped into another world. Eleanor gave him access to company servers through her executive login credentials. She couldn't navigate the digital files well herself, but knew they existed. Marcus could. He spent hours at her dining room table, his laptop open, digging through years of Prescott Industries records. The evidence was damning. Marcus found hiring algorithms that filtered out applicants from certain zip codes, effectively eliminating most minority candidates. He found emails where Jonathan instructed managers to find reasons to deny promotions to employees of color. He found pay records showing that white employees made an average of 18% more than black employees in equivalent positions. But the most damaging evidence came from former employees. Eleanor had given Marcus a list of people who'd left the company under suspicious circumstances. Marcus reached out to them carefully, explaining who he was and what they were investigating. The stories were heartbreaking. A black woman named Tasha Williams had been a senior analyst on track for promotion until she reported a client for making racist comments. Jonathan had forced her to apologize to the client and transferred her to a less visible department. She quit 6 months later. A Latino man named Miguel Cortez had outperformed his entire team, but was passed over for a promotion that went to a white colleague with less experience. When Miguel complained to HR, he was written up for insubordination and eventually fired. An Asian American woman named Priya Shah had been subjected to constant microaggressions from her manager. When she reported it, she was offered a settlement and an NDA. She signed because she needed the money, but she saved her documentation. 12 people, 12 stories of discrimination, retaliation, systematic exclusion, all under Jonathan Prescott's leadership. Marcus compiled everything into a comprehensive report. Charts showing hiring disparities, graphs of pay inequities, emails demonstrating intentional discrimination, testimony from victims. The evidence was irrefutable. Eleanor reviewed it with tears in her eyes. "Thomas would be ashamed," she said quietly. "He built this company to create opportunities. Jonathan has perverted everything we worked for." "What do we do now?" Marcus asked. "We present this to the board," Eleanor said. "I'm calling an emergency meeting." She looked at Marcus. "Will you be there? To present this?" "Me? Who better?" Eleanor said. "You're the one who uncovered most of this. You're the one who lived it. They need to hear from you." Marcus felt the weight of what she was asking. The board of Prescott Industries included some of Memphis' most powerful business people. All of them older than him. Most of them white. And here, Eleanor was asking him to walk into that room and accuse their CEO of systematic racism. "I'll do it," Marcus said. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon. Marcus prepared his presentation obsessively, practicing in Eleanor's living room while she listened and provided feedback. He selected the most damning evidence, organized it for maximum impact, anticipated questions and objections. He had one shot. He couldn't waste it. On Monday evening, Marcus' phone rang from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Thompson," a male voice said. "My name is Richard Keller. I'm an attorney for Jonathan Prescott. We know what you and Mrs. Prescott are planning. Marcus' blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence, Richard said. You've been meeting with Mrs. Prescott regularly. You've been contacting former employees. You've accessed company records. Did you really think you could do all this without Mr. Prescott finding out? How? We monitor Mrs. Prescott's accounts for her protection, Richard said smoothly. Given her recent health issues, we need to ensure she's not being taken advantage of by opportunists. Marcus wanted to throw his phone across the room. What do you want? Mr. Prescott is willing to make this very simple, Richard said. Drop whatever you're planning to present tomorrow. Walk away. In exchange, he'll withdraw the lawsuit, give you another $10,000, and guarantee you won't face any further legal action. If you refuse, if you show up to that board meeting tomorrow, Mr. Prescott will pursue legal action to have his mother declared mentally incompetent due to her age and recent traumatic brain injury. He'll file for an emergency conservatorship, arguing that she's being manipulated by you. The board meeting will be postponed while the courts sort out Eleanor's mental capacity. Marcus felt the trap closing. You can't do that. We can and we will, Richard said. Additionally, Mr. Prescott has connections with local law enforcement. Your background will be scrutinized very carefully. It would be unfortunate if certain irregularities were discovered. Is that a threat? It's a reality, Richard said. You're a young black man with no resources going against one of Memphis' most prominent families. How do you think that ends for you? The line went dead. Marcus immediately called Eleanor. She answered on the first ring. They know, Marcus said. He relayed the conversation. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Hes threatening to have me declared incompetent. Yes. Can he do that? Marcus asked. With the right doctors and the right lawyers? Yes, Eleanor said heavily. I'm 73 and I had a traumatic brain injury. A judge might be sympathetic to the argument that I'm being manipulated. So we're done. Eleanor laughed. It was a sharp sound. Absolutely not. We're going to that board meeting tomorrow. But, Marcus, Eleanor said, and her voice was steel. My son has underestimated both of us. He thinks you'll be intimidated, and he thinks you'll be easy to sideline. He's wrong. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we fight. Marcus wanted to believe her. But as he lay in bed that night, he couldn't shake the fear. Jonathan Prescott had money, power, connections. What did Marcus have? Only the truth. He hoped it would be enough. Marcus arrived at Prescott Industries at 1:30, giving himself time to prepare. The building that had once represented his dreams now felt like enemy territory. Eleanor met him in the lobby. She looked elegant and sharp in a navy suit, no trace of uncertainty. Ready? She asked. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. They took the elevator to the 15th floor. The boardroom was all glass and steel, with a massive mahogany table surrounded by leather chairs. The board members were already gathering. Marcus recognized some faces from news articles. Robert Hartwell, who owned a chain of car dealerships. Susan Mitchell, a prominent attorney. David Chang, a real estate developer. All successful, all powerful, all staring at Marcus with varying degrees of curiosity and hostility. Jonathan was at the head of the table, impeccably dressed, wearing an expression of concern. Mother, he said, standing. I'm glad you're feeling well enough to attend. Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately first. Sit down, Jonathan, Eleanor said. Her voice brooked no argument. This is my company, and I've called this emergency meeting. Well, proceed. Jonathan sat, but his eyes were cold. Robert Hartwell cleared his throat. Eleanor? What's this about? It's about systemic discrimination at Prescott Industries, Eleanor said. And I've asked Marcus Thompson to present our findings. The room erupted. Several board members started talking at once. Jonathan's face went red. Absolutely not, he said. This man has no authority to be here, let alone present to this board. I'm invoking my authority as primary shareholder, Eleanor said. Mr. Thompson will present. Marcus stood on shaking legs, connected his laptop to the projection system, and began. He walked them through the hiring data, showed them the pay disparities, displayed the emails, shared testimony from former employees. He spoke for 20 minutes, his voice growing stronger as he went. The evidence was overwhelming. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Susan Mitchell spoke. "This is very concerning." Jonathan stood. "This is a witch hunt led by a disgruntled job applicant who's manipulating my mother during a vulnerable time." He gestured to Marcus. "This man has been meeting with her in secret, accessing company records without authorization, all as revenge because he wasn't hired." "Is that true, Eleanor?" Robert asked. "I authorized everything," Eleanor said. "And I'm not being manipulated. I'm finally seeing what's been happening in my own company." Jonathan's expression shifted. He looked at someone near the door, gave a slight nod. Two men entered. Marcus didn't recognize them, but their suits and demeanor screamed lawyers. "We have a matter that requires immediate board attention," the taller man said. He handed documents to Robert. "We're filing an emergency petition for conservatorship over Eleanor Prescott. Medical evidence shows she suffered cognitive impairment from her recent injury and is being exploited by Mr. Thompson. We're asking the board to suspend these proceedings until the court can determine Mrs. Prescott's mental capacity." The room exploded again. Eleanor stood. "How dare you?" "You're proving my point, Mother," Jonathan said. "You're not thinking clearly. You're letting this man poison you against me." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," Eleanor said. Her voice shook with rage. "You've betrayed everything your father built." Jonathan's mask of concern slipped. He looked at Marcus with pure hatred. "You did this. You came into our lives and destroyed everything." "I saved your mother's life," Marcus said. "And you made it your mission to destroy mine." The tall lawyer interrupted. "This meeting is suspended. The court will." "No," Eleanor said. She turned to the board. "I'm the majority shareholder. I'm calling for a vote right now. A vote to remove Jonathan Prescott as CEO pending investigation of these allegations." "You can't do that," Jonathan said. "I absolutely can," Eleanor said. "All in favor." The board members looked at each other. The evidence Marcus had presented was damning, but this was Jonathan Prescott, their colleague and friend. The silence stretched. Then Susan Mitchell raised her hand. "In favor." David Chang followed. "In favor." One by one, 7 of the 11 board members voted in favor. Jonathan was removed as CEO effective immediately. Jonathan stood, his face contorted with rage. "You think you've won," he said. He looked directly at Marcus. "You're going to regret this." He stormed out, his lawyers following. The room dissolved into chaos. Board members arguing. Eleanor answering questions. Marcus sat down heavily, adrenaline draining away, leaving him exhausted. Eleanor caught his eye across the table. She smiled. They had won. For now. The next day, Jonathan's response began. News outlets received anonymous tips about Marcus' past, twisting his college financial aid into a scandal, suggesting he had stolen money. Marcus' apartment building was visited by code enforcement officers who found multiple violations and threatened eviction. His mother received harassing phone calls. Marcus knew this was Jonathan's work. The investigation into Prescott Industries became public. News outlets ran stories. Federal agencies started looking into civil rights violations. Marcus' face was back in the media, this time as a whistleblower. The attention was overwhelming. Then, 2 weeks after the board meeting, Marcus was walking home from a corner store when a black SUV pulled up beside him. 2 large men got out. Jonathan Prescott stepped out behind them. The street was empty. Marcus' heart raced. "We need to talk," Jonathan said. Marcus looked around for witnesses, saw none. "I don't think we do." "You destroyed my life," Jonathan said. He stepped closer, his face inches from Marcus. "Do you understand that? You took everything. I earned my reputation. I built that company into what it is today. And you ungrateful thug, you ruined it." "I didn't ruin anything," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You did that yourself." One of the large men grabbed Marcus' shoulder, pushing him against the wall of a building. Marcus' phone fell from his pocket. The other man kicked it away. Jonathan leaned in. "Here is what's going to happen. You're going to recant everything. You're going to admit you made it all up because you were angry about not getting hired. You're going to tell the investigators you fabricated evidence, and you're going to disappear." "Or I will bury you," Jonathan said, Do you think that conservatorship filing was my only play? I have a dozen prosecutors in my pocket. I can have you arrested for anything I want. Theft. Assault. Doesn't matter if it's true. By the time it gets sorted out, your life will be destroyed and your mother will be dead from lack of treatment. Do you understand me? One of the men punched Marcus in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping. This is how it works, Jonathan said. His voice was calm now, almost conversational. People like you don't win against people like me. You should have taken the money and stayed in your place. Instead, you had to be a hero. He stepped back, gestured to his men. They released Marcus, who slid down the wall. Remember what I said. You have 3 days. Jonathan got back in his SUV and drove away. Marcus sat on the sidewalk, pain radiating through his body, and realized with absolute clarity that Jonathan Prescott was not going to stop. He was going to escalate until Marcus was destroyed or dead. Marcus retrieved his phone. The screen was cracked but functional. He checked to make sure the voice recording app was still running. It was. He had everything. Every word. Jonathan Prescott had just confessed to corruption, threatened violence, and admitted to planning to fabricate criminal charges. And Marcus had recorded all of it. For the first time in months, Marcus smiled. Marcus didn't go home that night. He went straight to Eleanor's house, his side aching where he'd been punched. Eleanor took one look at him and called her personal physician. While Marcus was being examined for bruised ribs, he played her the recording. Eleanor listened with an expression of growing horror and rage. She closed her eyes when it finished. I didn't know he was capable of this, she said quietly. Physical violence, threats against your mother, corruption. I knew he was ruthless in business, but this. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry. We can use this, Marcus said. We can end him. Eleanor looked at him. How? We take this to the authorities. To the press. We make sure everyone knows exactly who Jonathan Prescott is. But Eleanor shook her head. It's not enough. You're right, Marcus said, frustrated. Hes too connected. He said himself he has prosecutors in his pocket. A recording can be disputed, explained away. But it was everything they had. Unless, Marcus had an idea. It was risky, possibly stupid, but it might be the only way. What if we make him think he's won? Marcus said. What do you mean? What if I do exactly what he asked? I recant. I say I made it up. I disappear. Eleanor stared at him. Why would you do that? Because if Jonathan thinks I'm beaten, he'll get careless, Marcus said. And while he's celebrating his victory, we finish the real investigation. We get federal authorities fully involved. We gather more evidence from other victims. We build a case he can't threaten or buy his way out of. But you'll be destroyed, Eleanor said. Your reputation, your mother's treatment, everything you've worked for. I'm already destroyed, Marcus said. Jonathan made sure of that. But maybe I can be destroyed in a way that actually accomplishes something. Eleanor considered this. There was a hardness in her eyes that Marcus was beginning to recognize. What do you need from me? First, Marcus said, I need you to fund my mother's treatment. Anonymously. Make sure she gets everything she needs, regardless of what happens to me. Done, Eleanor said. Second, I need you to get in touch with federal investigators privately. Give them everything we have. Tell them I'm going to appear to cooperate with Jonathan, but I'm actually working with them. Done. Third, Marcus continued, I need you to file a police report about what Jonathan did to me today. Document the assault. Create a paper trail. But don't press charges yet. We wait until we have everything. Eleanor nodded slowly. This is dangerous, Marcus. If Jonathan finds out you're still investigating, hell. I know, Marcus interrupted. But this is the only way to win. They spent the next 2 days setting everything in motion. Eleanor contacted FBI agents investigating civil rights violations. They were very interested in Marcus' recording and agreed to let him play along with Jonathan while they built their case. Eleanor filed a police report. The officer who took it looked skeptical when she named Jonathan Prescott as the assailant, but he wrote it down. Eleanor hired private security for Marcus' mother, without her knowledge. If Jonathan tried anything there, he'd fail. On the third day, Marcus called Jonathan. He expected it to go to voicemail, was surprised when Jonathan answered. "I'll do it," Marcus said without preamble. "Smart choice," Jonathan said. Marcus could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Come to my office tomorrow, 10 in the morning. We'll draft your statement together." Marcus hung up and immediately felt like he might vomit. He was walking back into the lion's den. The next morning, Marcus entered Prescott Tower for the third time. The first time had been with so much hope. The second, with determination. This time, with a wire provided by the FBI taped to his chest under his shirt. Jonathan's office was on the 15th floor, all windows and expensive furniture. Jonathan sat behind a massive desk, looking relaxed. "Have a seat," he said. Marcus sat. A man in his 30s, wearing a suit, sat in the corner with a laptop. "My attorney," Jonathan explained. "Help us craft your statement." For the next hour, they worked on a statement recanting everything Marcus had said about discrimination at Prescott Industries. The attorney wrote while Jonathan dictated, "Marcus Thompson admits that he fabricated evidence and testimony regarding Prescott Industries out of anger over not being hired. He acknowledges that his claims were false and motivated by a desire for revenge and financial gain. He apologizes to Jonathan Prescott and the Prescott family for the harm caused." Marcus read it and felt sick. Jonathan pushed a document across the desk. "Sign this. It's an agreement that you'll deliver this statement publicly and never speak about Prescott Industries or the Prescott family again. In exchange, all legal action against you is dropped." Marcus picked up the pen. His hand shook. He thought about Eleanor, about the FBI agents listening to every word through the wire, about Tasha and Miguel and Priya and Jerome and all the others, about his mother, safe because Eleanor was paying for her treatment. He signed. Jonathan smiled. It was the smile of a man who thought he'd won. "Good. Now get out of my office and out of my life." Marcus stood, turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "Jonathan." "What?" Marcus looked back. His hand went to his chest, pressed against the wire. "You should know something. Everything you just said is being recorded by the FBI. They're downstairs right now, waiting for my signal." Jonathan's face went white. Marcus pulled up his shirt, showed the wire. "They heard you help me fabricate a false confession. They heard you discuss suppressing evidence. They heard everything." "No," Jonathan said. He stood, knocking over his chair. "This is entrapment." "Actually," Eleanor's voice said from the doorway, "it's justice." She entered the office, followed by 2 FBI agents. Jonathan looked between them, comprehension and panic warring on his face. "Mother." "Sit down, Jonathan," Eleanor said. Her voice was cold. "It's over." The agents moved toward Jonathan. They had the assault recording. They had the fabricated confession. They had the wire recording from this meeting. Combined with all the discrimination evidence, Jonathan Prescott was facing federal charges. Jonathan looked at Marcus with pure hatred. "You'll never work in this city again. I'll make sure of that." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But at least I can sleep at night." The agents handcuffed Jonathan. As they led him past Marcus toward the door, Jonathan leaned in close. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Actually," Eleanor said, "it is." She handed Jonathan a document. "I've filed for full control of Prescott Industries and initiated proceedings to remove you from any future involvement with the company. You're also disinherited from my estate. You won't see a penny." Jonathan's face crumpled. "Mother, please. You're my son and I love you," Eleanor said. Her voice shook, but her expression was resolute. "But I will not let you continue to hurt people in your father's name. Goodbye, Jonathan." They took him away. Marcus and Eleanor stood in the silent office. "It's really over," Marcus said. "Almost," Eleanor said. "Come with me." The news of Jonathan Prescott's arrest exploded across Memphis. Federal charges for civil rights violations, assault, witness tampering, and conspiracy to fabricate evidence. The story went national again. But this time, Marcus wasn't a victim or a whistleblower. He was the man who'd brought down a corrupt CEO. Prescott Industries entered crisis mode. Eleanor, now publicly resuming active control, held a press conference. She stood at a podium in a conference room, cameras flashing, and did something remarkable. She told the truth. "My son betrayed everything this company was founded to represent," she said. Her voice was steady. Under his leadership, Prescott Industries engaged in systematic discrimination against employees and applicants of color. These actions were wrong, illegal, and contrary to our values. I take responsibility for being absent when I should have been vigilant. The board and I are committed to fundamental change. We're implementing immediate reforms to our hiring, promotion, and pay practices. We're bringing in outside auditors. We're creating an independent committee to investigate all past complaints, and we're making restitution to those who were harmed. Then Eleanor did something no one expected. We're appointing Marcus Thompson as our new Director of Equity and Inclusion. He'll have full authority to restructure our practices and ensure this never happens again. The room erupted with questions. Marcus stood beside Eleanor, overwhelmed. They had discussed this, but seeing it announced publicly made it real. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the work. He wasn't just given a title. Eleanor backed him completely. They created new hiring protocols that removed bias from the process. They implemented blind resume reviews. They established a diversity committee with actual power. They conducted pay audits and corrected disparities. Marcus tracked down every person Jonathan had pushed out or discriminated against. Tasha Williams, Miguel Cortez, Priya Shah, Jerome from the warehouse, dozens of others. Prescott Industries offered them settlements, apologies, and in many cases, their jobs back. Jerome took the offer. He was made a senior analyst. The position had deserved years ago. When he started, he found Marcus in his new office. 10th floor, windows overlooking the city. Nice view, Jerome said. Marcus smiled. It is. Jerome sat down. A lot of us didn't think this would happen. Thought the system was too broken. You made us believe again. I had help, Marcus said. Eleanor appeared in the doorway. May I interrupt? Of course, Marcus said. Eleanor entered, carrying a folder. She looked older lately, more tired, but her eyes were bright. I need to discuss something with you privately. Jerome left. Eleanor sat down heavily. The doctors say my cancer has progressed, she said without preamble. The brain injury weakened me more than we realized. They're giving me 6 months to a year. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. Don't be, she said. I'm 73. I've had a good life. But I need to make sure the work we've started continues after I'm gone. She opened the folder. This is my new will. I'm leaving you a 20% stake in Prescott Industries and a permanent seat on the board. I'm leaving another 30% to a trust that will support minority-owned businesses and educational scholarships. The remaining shares are distributed among various charities. Jonathan gets nothing. Marcus couldn't speak. Eleanor, that's too much. It's exactly right, Eleanor said. You saved my life twice, Marcus. Once on that sidewalk, and once by showing me what my son had become in time to do something about it. This company needs to outlast both of us. This ensures it does. But there's a condition. Marcus waited. You have to promise me that you'll never stop fighting, Eleanor said. Not just at Prescott Industries, but everywhere you go. This isn't just about one company. It's about changing a system. Can you promise me that? Marcus thought about that morning on Madison Avenue when Head made a choice to help a stranger. About everything that had cost him, and everything it had brought him. About the people he could help now and the people who would come after. I promise, he said. Eleanor smiled. Good, because I'm not done yet. We have work to do. They spent the next months transforming Prescott Industries. The company that had been a symbol of exclusion became a model for inclusion. They recruited from HBCUs. They partnered with organizations supporting minority professionals. They made their hiring data public to ensure accountability. The changes spread beyond Prescott. Other Memphis companies, seeing the publicity and the federal scrutiny, started examining their own practices. Some resisted. But slowly, the conversation changed. Marcus became a sought-after speaker. He told his story at conferences, at colleges, to business groups. Not as a hero, but as someone who had stumbled into a fight he couldn't walk away from. Jonathan Prescott was convicted on multiple federal charges. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay substantial fines. Some people thought it wasn't enough. Marcus wasn't sure what enough would look like. Justice wasn't a math equation where everything balanced. But it was something. Eleanor's health declined faster than anyone expected. 8 months after Jonathan's arrest, she was hospitalized. Marcus visited her every day after work, sitting beside her bed, updating her on the company, on the changes taking hold, on the lives being changed. "You did good," she said one evening. Her voice was weak. "Both of us," Marcus said. He held her hand. She smiled. "Thomas would have liked you. I wish I could have met him." "You did," she said. "In me. In the company he built. In the values he believed in. Those don't die, Marcus. Not if we keep fighting for them." Eleanor Prescott died 3 days later. Her funeral was attended by hundreds. Business leaders, politicians, employees, community members. Marcus gave a eulogy. He talked about her courage, her willingness to see the truth and act on it, her belief that it was never too late to do the right thing. After the funeral, the will was read. Marcus officially became a 20% owner of Prescott Industries and a board member. At 25 years old, he was one of the youngest board members of a major company in Tennessee, and one of the few black board members in Memphis' corporate landscape. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had missed a junior analyst interview and ended up reshaping the company from the top. 6 months after Eleanor's death, Marcus stood in the Prescott Industries boardroom looking at the portraits on the wall. Generations of white men staring down at him. The founders, the leaders, the executives who had built this company over 80 years. Eleanor's portrait had been added beside her husband Thomas. She looked dignified, strong, exactly as Marcus remembered her. Someday, he knew, his own portrait would hang here. The thought still felt surreal. Marcus Thompson, the kid from South Memphis who had nearly been evicted, who had loaded trucks for $11 an hour, who had been threatened and attacked and nearly destroyed. That same kid now sat on the board of directors, with the power to shape policy and change lives. The transformation of Prescott Industries was ongoing. Some days felt like moving a mountain with a spoon. Old attitudes died hard. There were still board members who resisted changes, employees who resented his presence, clients who made their discomfort known. But the numbers didn't lie. Since implementing new practices, Prescott Industries had increased its minority hiring by 47%. Employee satisfaction scores had risen. Retention rates improved. The company was thriving in ways it hadn't under Jonathan's leadership. More importantly, lives were changing. Marcus had hired 37 people in his first year as Director of Equity and Inclusion. Young black professionals, Latino graduates, Asian American analysts, people who reminded him of himself, talented and overlooked. He gave them opportunities and watched them excel. The scholarship fund Eleanor had established was supporting students at 5 HBCUs. The business loan program had funded 12 minority-owned startups. The ripple effects extended far beyond Prescott Industries. Marcus' mother was in remission. The cancer treatments Eleanor had funded, continued by the trust after her death, had worked. She was weak but alive, proud of her son in ways that made Marcus' throat tight when she talked about it. She didn't fully understand what he did now. Couldn't quite comprehend how her boy, who had studied finance, had ended up reshaping a company and speaking at conferences. But she knew he was fighting for something important. That was enough. The legal battles with Jonathan had finally ended. All appeals exhausted. He would serve 4 years of his sentence before parole eligibility. Marcus didn't think about him often anymore. The hatred had faded into something like pity. Jonathan had everything, and destroyed it through his own bigotry and arrogance. On a Thursday afternoon in late spring, Marcus received a visitor. The receptionist called up, "Mr. Thompson, there's a young woman here asking to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Her name is Destiny Foster." Marcus didn't recognize the name, but something made him say, "Send her up." A few minutes later, a young black woman in her early 20s entered his office. She was nervous, twisting her hands, eyes wide as she looked around. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "thank you for seeing me. Please, call me Marcus. Sit down. What can I do for you?" Destiny sat on the edge of the chair. "I saw your story. What happened with Mr. Prescott? I saw what you did, what you changed here. She stopped, took a breath. "I applied here 3 years ago. I had good grades from University of Memphis, good references. I never heard back. I applied to probably 70 companies. Nobody hired me. I've been working retail, barely making enough to survive. I was about to give up on ever using my degree. Marcus felt the familiar ache. He'd heard too many versions of this story. What's your degree in? Business administration, with a concentration in marketing. Marcus nodded. And you're hoping? I know it's presumptuous, Destiny said quickly. I know you must get people asking all the time. I just thought maybe, since you changed things here, maybe there's a chance now, for someone like me. Marcus opened his laptop, pulled up the careers portal. Tell me about yourself. Over the next 30 minutes, Destiny described her background, her skills, her dreams. She was smart, articulate, passionate, exactly the kind of person who should have been hired years ago. Exactly the kind of person Prescott Industries had systematically excluded. When she finished, Marcus smiled. I think we can find a place for you here. I want you to talk to our marketing director next week. I can't promise anything, but I think you'd be a good fit. Destiny's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Marcus said. He handed her his card. Email me your resume and references. Well, set up a formal interview. But I'll be honest with you. If you interview as well as you just talked to me, I think you'll do great. Thank you, Destiny said. She wiped her eyes. You don't know what this means. Actually, Marcus said quietly, I do. After Destiny left, Marcus stood at his window, looking out over Memphis. The city stretched out below him, full of people like Destiny, talented, overlooked, deserving of chances they'd been denied. He couldn't help all of them. The work was too big, the problems too systemic. But he could help some, and the some he helped would help others. That's how change worked, not in grand gestures but in thousands of small acts. Hiring Destiny, mentoring a young analyst, speaking at a college, pushing back against bias in a board meeting, piece by piece, person by person, rebuilding something better from the ruins of what had been. His phone buzzed. A text from Jerome. You coming to the celebration dinner tonight? The team wants to celebrate hitting our quarterly targets. Marcus smiled. Wouldn't miss it. He looked one more time at Eleanor's portrait on the wall, at the legacy shed left him. Then he turned back to his desk, to the work that was never finished but always worth doing. Marcus Thompson had missed his dream job to help a stranger. That choice had cost him everything. But in losing everything, he'd found something more valuable. A purpose, a platform, the power to change not just his own life but the lives of countless others. And in the end, that was worth more than any job could ever be. The young man who had sacrificed his interview had become something far greater than a junior analyst. He had become an agent of change, and he was just getting started. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives turn out to be the beginning of something we never imagined. Sometimes losing everything is how we discover what we're really meant to do. Marcus had learned that lesson on a sidewalk on Madison Avenue. He would spend the rest of his life making sure that lesson mattered, that his sacrifice, Eleanor's courage, and the struggles of everyone who came before him resulted in a world where talented young people like Destiny didn't have to fight so hard just for a chance. That was his promise to Eleanor. That was his promise to himself. And Marcus Thompson always kept his promises. Have you ever had a moment where doing the right thing cost you everything, but led you somewhere you never expected? Share your story in the comments below. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when the cost seems too high. Thank you for watching, and remember that every choice we make to help others, to fight injustice, to demand better creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep making those hard choices that change the world.